listening to the Author Inside You podcast, a weekly podcast designed to motivate you to finish writing a book, choose a publisher, and have your work build an audience. Keep listening if you're looking to get propelled into the next chapter of your life. And now, it's the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.
Hello, and welcome to the Author Inside You podcast. I'm Matt Rafferty.
And I'm Leah Rafferty.
Joining us today is Sherrie Dunlevy, author of How Can I Help? Your go-to guide for helping loved ones through life's difficulties. Sherrie's known as the Inspirationista and believes we all need to live life with passion and purpose. Sherrie's a speaker and a business owner and a former TV news anchor and radio host. Sherrie, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thank you for inviting me to be on your podcast, Matt and Leah.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time. So here we are, you and I are from Kent State, and we're both there at the same time. I think that's pretty cool. Who knew?
I know.
Yeah, so go Flashes. Matt's from Ithaca College, so.
What a coincidence.
We won't talk to him, no.
Nah.
So, Sherrie, I see, unfortunately, that you lost a child. We're very sorry for you.
Oh, thank you.
About that. And that made you decide to help others?
When my son died, although we had so many people that helped us, there were so many people that loved us through it and helped us in so many different ways. We would have never been able to get through it without them. But at the same time, there were some people that were very close to my husband and I that just kind of disappeared and dropped out of our lives. So here we are, grieving the loss of our son and grieving the loss of some very dear and close friendships at the same time. And through the years, I was always curious as to, what was that about? Why would they do that? And I came up with 3 scenarios. The first one was, they say the most painful thing that could ever happen in a person's life is to lose a child.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So these people might have children, that were my son's age, and maybe it was just too painful to even go there, The other thing I thought it might be is that it could be that they wanted to do or say something, but they were afraid they were going to say something that was going to upset us and make us cry. And so not knowing that, they just chose to do nothing. Mm-hmm. And then the other scenario I thought was that they wanted to do something, but they just had no idea what to do or say at all. Mm-hmm. And so I just kept thinking, my gosh, there's got to be some kind of book out there that would help people like this, right? And so I would Google, and I would go on Amazon, and I would search for these things, and there wasn't. And I just kept feeling like this knowing inside of me. I don't know, people call it, the voice, the voice of God. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It wasn't. It was just like this knowing. It wasn't that. It was just this knowing of you can keep looking all you want, but you're not going to find it because you're the one that's supposed to write it. And I'm like, oh, heck no. I write news copy at best. I've never had a dream or desire to be an author ever, which is, probably, I don't know if that's a good thing or that's a bad thing, but what I realized is that I didn't have to be the expert here. So when I decided that I was going to write this book, I just decided I was going to tell my story, but this isn't what the book was about.
Okay.
So what I did was I went out on social media, on Facebook, and they say if you want to accomplish something, what you do is you make it public,
right.
So
Right.
people will hold you accountable, right?
Sure.
Yeah,
Right.
you feel bad for not completing it. Sure.
Yeah, that's why I never tell anyone I'm on a diet.
Right.
But anyway, so I about 6 years ago, I went out on Facebook and I said, hey, I'm going to write a book. And oh my gosh, I'm thinking, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Why did I post that?
Yeah, but see, what I wanted to make this was I wanted to find people who had gone through a similar experience. And you know what I found? I found that it's not just death. I found that people drop out of your life when you're going through a lot of hard times, whether you lost a job or whether you're getting divorced or whether you've just got a terminal diagnosis or whether you can't go out anywhere because you're caring for, a sick child or an elderly parent. Some people just kind of don't invite you out anymore. Just choose a side or just don't come around or don't call. And that's so hurtful to people. And so what I did was I asked, I don't know how many people, and I asked them, what did people do that helped you through this hard time? What were the things specifically that they did and that they said? And what were some of the more unusual things that were really clever that really helped you? And what were the things that weren't so helpful? Not wrong, but just weren't so helpful. And so I realized that, even though I'm not a quote unquote writer, so to speak, I am an information gatherer as a reporter, right?
Yes.
So I just feel like my whole life was preparing my career as a news anchor, losing my son, all of this stuff prepared me to put this out and to bring it forth.
Wow.
So that's basically what I did. I compiled all the information and I put it into a book, and you can read it two different ways. You can read it cover to cover, and it's very interesting. It's very informative. It has not a little bit about my story in it and my journey with my son, but it has other people's stories and their hearts in it as well. But you can also just go to the chapter that you need to go to. Oh my gosh, my friends are getting divorced. I don't know what to do. And you can go to the divorce chapter.
Great.
And you can find a bunch of things that you can say or you can do that can help them out. Now, not everything is, some of the stuff might sound corny, or some of the stuff might sound like, that's just not me. And that's fine.
Right.
But there's a lot of helpful suggestions in there that can at least get you comfortable of knowing that these are things that actually help people that were going through it. So that if I do this will help, and they will know that I care, and they will know that I love them, and they will feel a little bit better,
Wow, this sounds like a great idea. I'm really surprised, like you said, that there was nothing out there before you.
Well, and the funny thing is that, I wrote this book like 6 years ago, almost 7 now, and put it on a shelf for 5 years.
Okay.
Because again, like I said, I was telling myself all kinds of stories of, who do you think you are? You're not a writer. Who's going to, but I never had any doubt that the information was going to be helpful and useful.
Okay.
But I think it was the right timing. Because as you said in my introduction, I have my own business, and it just so happens that someone that I met through my business is a New York Times best-selling author, and she co-wrote 2 of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books.
Oh, okay.
And so when I was researching, and I put it on the shelf because I was telling myself all kinds of stories, and quite frankly, because I didn't know what the heck to do with it.
Yes.
Now what?
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I was coaching through my other business, and I was talking to my coach, and I said, I got into this business because I knew I wanted to self-publish. I did know that I wanted to do that. I had consulted people, and they basically told me self-publishing, you have much more control.
That's
right.
People keep telling us.
And if it is important to you, if you get a publisher, you get an advance, well, they can sit on your project for a couple of years,
Sure.
They don't even have to visit it. And basically, for what I find out is that you still have to do the marketing anyway.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yes. That's what
Right.
we hear.
And I've also found out that you pretty much get 6 weeks to make or break your book, when it comes out, when it's released.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, I don't know. I want to self-publish, but that's going to cost money. You know what I mean? And I worked in local radio, and I wasn't making money.
Right. Right. So it's put up money or put up a lot of pressure and have 6 weeks to do it or make it or break it.
Yeah. So what I chose to do was start this other business so that I could earn the money. So I was in the process of building this business, and that same voice that told me to write the book kept saying, "You've got the money now. What about this book? What about this book?" And so I was talking to my coach, and I said, this feeling about this book that I put on the shelf, I said, it just keeps coming up stronger and stronger and stronger. And he goes, "Well, hire someone." And I'm like, "I didn't know you could do that." I had no idea you could do that. So I had talked to I don't know, 3 or 4 people because he was out in Beverly Hills, and he gave me the name of 3 or 4 people, and just none of them really resonated with me. And I knew that there was this woman in my business that, had this information, you know what I mean? And so I finally contacted her, and she led me to my editor, and she wrote 3 of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And so it was really exciting that I was able to hire someone so top notch.
Yeah.
What was so cool about it was she when I sent it, she says, "I need it by Friday at 4." And she said, "But I don't work weekends, so I'll get to it on Monday." And I'm in a meeting on Saturday morning, and I am in a break, and I open up my email, and there's an email from her, and she's like, "I got your book. I just want you to know. I want you to know that I've read your book.
Wow.
And I want you to know that I never work on weekends, and I've already started working."
Oh, wow.
So I was really excited about that.
Sure.
Really excited about that. So that was kind of like the validation. But I think, sometimes it was just the right timing.
Sure.
Had I gone forward and self-published it, it might have just been something I wasn't really proud of, because I didn't have the money. I didn't have the know-how. It wouldn't have been what, I'm really proud of this book.
Good.
I am really proud of this book.
Okay, so to go back, you knew what you wanted to do. You went on Facebook. Did you ask people about their story on Facebook also? Is that where you compiled their stories also?
No.
How did you get the stories?
Okay, so I said, I'm writing a book, and I am looking for people who have gone through a divorce, who have lost loved ones, who have been diagnosed with a chronic or terminal illness, who are taking care of someone with a chronic or illness, that have lost their job. Would you be willing to talk with me and share with me? Please, message me.
Okay.
And so, or email me. I think that and everyone was like, I will. People are coming out of the woodwork. And so, of course, I contacted all those people, and, some I interviewed, some I surveyed, but it was the same question, the same questionnaire. And, some people got back to me. I think that some people might have they thought they would help me, and then it became too painful, But I had hundreds that,
Great. Wow.
that volunteered to help me, and a good percentage of them who actually did. And I can really see this book growing. When I go out and do talks, and when I tell people about it, I said, I really love to have your ideas. And, a lot of the ideas are now they want me to do something, include a chapter on pet loss.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
And they want me to include a chapter on addiction, because no one knows what to say or do when someone's child is an addict, or someone is an addict that or if someone dies of an overdose. What do you do or say?
Right.
And I don't know. I don't know. So there might be, an expansion of this.
Sherrie, when you did the interviews, did you record them and then go back and transcribe them? Or did you just take notes as you did the interviews?
Everything was written. I still have a file, a file of papers and papers and papers and papers, because I would write everything. I wrote everything.
So it was probably pretty difficult to whittle it down after you had so many interviews. And it sounds like you did a lot of interviews.
I did do a lot of interviews, but then I would just put it was kind of weird how, I don't know how it all came together, but the ones that answered the questions on divorce, I would put that in the divorce file. And the ones that, with death or death, I would put in the death file. And of course the death chapter is the longest, biggest chapter. Because I deal with, suicide and the death of a child and death of parents. So there's just, so many different nuances through death. The chapter that it was the hardest to write and people didn't want to talk about, believe it or not, was unemployment.
Oh.
Yeah, so that one really could use a lot of work. But, there's a lot of stigma around unemployment because, there's a difference between whether you got downsized or whether you got fired.
Right.
So
but either way, it's very hurtful.
It's very hurtful. So so getting back to the process, as I would sit down, I would read all of them and then I would highlight, ooh, this is a really good quote, or this is a really good suggestion, or and so when I would sit down and I would write, I would just write death. The death chapter. I would just write the divorce chapter. That was what was so awesome about the editor, is because I literally cried when I got my edit back, because I thought I knew exactly how I wanted this book to look, and I couldn't get it from my mind to the page. And she did that for me, and my designer did that for me. And it was literally, I couldn't believe that they were able to do that for me in the exact way that I had imagined it.
Yeah,
so
that's
I just
wonderful.
feel like the perfect people were sent my way.
So did it, so now you have the editor, and then is she she's not part of the publishing company though. She's an independent, correct?
She works with the publisher, but she also works independently.
Okay, so you were using her as an independent agent.
I was using her as an independent, yes.
And then the cover art was all part of that also? Or did you find that separately?
Well, the cover art actually came to me by a man that I had interviewed on the radio, and he, in his spare time, is a nature photographer. And so as a Christmas card, one year he had sent me this picture of this beautiful flower that had snow on top of it. And it was bent over, It was just looked like it was just something that was so beautiful, but yet slightly damaged, different, Something unexpected had happened that shouldn't have happened. And I thought, oh my gosh, that would be the perfect,
wow.
That's the message of my book. That would be my cover. And he graciously let me have that picture, that photo, of the for my cover.
Great.
But my cover designer came up with a beautiful cover too, and I didn't know how to incorporate it. So the cover that he came up with, which was helping hands, one hand reaching out to help the other, kind of like in a shadow, that's on the back cover as you're reading about the book.
Great.
Oh, very cool.
Well, good. He still you were still able to use his picture. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And then what about getting the book published?
My cover designer also helps you get the book published. So he prepared everything for me, ready to upload on CreateSpace. That's how we decided to do it.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did everything through CreateSpace. And then when I was ready, he uploaded it to Kindle as well. But that's how, and I'm proud to say that in April it became an Amazon bestseller.
Congratulations.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes.
That's great.
So I'm really excited about that.
So everyone we've talked to really likes CreateSpace. Do you feel that way also?
I like CreateSpace. I've had a few issues with because I was ordering 150, 75, 200 books at a time, you know what I mean? And I would find inconsistencies with each order sometimes with my cover. And so that I've had some issues. Mm-hmm. I have to admit that I had, but that's print on demand. And from what I understand is that they bid them out. Who can do 75 books this time? Who can do? So
that makes sense.
You never know who you're going to get.
Right.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily the same.
It's not
coming off.
consistent.
Coming off the same press.
Right. So I've recently reached out, and I have a friend up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who has self-published, and he told me about, I can't remember the name of the site, but I could share it. But anyway, you can put out bids for printers, and so now I have a printer out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, that's going to be doing my next printing for me.
Oh,
wow.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
All right, and
so I hope it turns out well.
Yes, yeah.
So then you have 100 books or 200 books. What do you do with those books?
Well, now I ordered 1,000. So.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Great.
So they're all coming to your house, or?
Yeah, and I don't know how many 1,000 books is actually going to be.
You'll probably know soon, right?
Yeah, I'm going to know by the end of this month. I did, because I'm working speaking in with it, and from the more I'm speaking, the more when I speak about this, I realize how many people this has happened to. Mm-hmm. That this is really touching a nerve on some folks.
Sure.
And they just want to keep buying copies. And so I thought, you know what, I need to have them. And then people were telling me I need to do in-services. And they're telling me, you need to really design an in-service at schools, because there's so many faculty members that just really don't know what to do. And you need to incorporate copies of your books with it. So I have other plans of what I want to do with this book.
Good. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess you're right. With your book, if someone really finds it very helpful, this is the kind of book that you would purchase for someone else and hand it to. Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's what's happening.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. Every time I go out and I talk to people, there's always someone that says they need the book. Even my cover designer sent me an email while he was working on my book, and he said, "I'm sorry I had to stop working on your book. My wife's father suddenly died. I realized I needed to read your book so I could help her."
And then when you're talking about teachers see so much with all their students and all the students going through so many different bad things. I'm sure that would be extremely helpful.
Sure, like you talked about addiction or divorce.
Yeah, right? Your parents are divorced.
A pet dying, right? I mean, that can affect the student too. So do you have any advice for other authors who might be listening, who are working on a book or thinking about starting writing a book?
Start. Just do it. Here's the thing. Everybody says someday. Well, someday, there's no such thing as someday. That's the first thing. So if you think you're going to put it out on Facebook and tell everyone you're going to do it. That's a good one.
Right.
That's a piece of advice. But the other thing is that even if it's on the shelf, get it off the shelf. Get new energy into it and reach out to people. You know what I mean? Even go out on Facebook and say, "Hey, can anybody help me get to the next step? Does anybody know anybody? Who do you know that I should know?" That's literally how everything happened for me.
Great.
I really do believe that every time that I was brave enough to step through my fear in this process of writing my book, as soon as I stepped out, another door opened for me.
That's great.
So that's my advice.
Excellent.
I don't care how scared you are, do it anyway, and the doors will open.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing that. That is fantastic.
We're all scared to do things. That's the problem. Everyone's scared. I don't know why we're all so worried about what other people think or whatever. It's just do it. That's what we tell our kids. Go, just take every opportunity. So and you don't know who's out there listening or who will see your post. So.
Yeah, you don't. You absolutely don't. And, it's just, and be open to meeting people and be open to, change. The one good thing I have to say, though, is because I felt that I was called to write this book. I had no attachment to the opinions of others. You know what I mean? Like
Sure, right.
So I wasn't writing a story that has been deep in my heart, that if someone would have told me they didn't like the story, I would have been crushed. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
there's a difference between, someone crushing your dream that way. I kept thinking, I don't care. I know this is a good idea. I know this needs to be out there. You're not going to hurt my feelings. If you need to make changes, make the changes. Just make it sound like me. But I'm not going to be attached to the opinion of it, because I knew that it was a good idea.
Great. That's
You know
wonderful.
what I mean?
Yeah. It's nice that you had so
So,
much
yeah.
confidence and that you believed in what you were doing. That's great. And I have to say, I believe this is a great book, right?
Yeah. But it wasn't because it was me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Is that inner feeling or?
It was, I felt like it flowed through me, that I was just the vessel. And so I felt like it was, there wasn't creativity on the line. So there was no ego or anything. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I guess maybe that's what it was.
Right.
It's because I thought, well, you know what? This isn't my story. This is everybody else's story. It's not going to hurt my feelings. I'm just telling a story, putting it out there kind of like compiling news.
Correct.
Information.
Right. Passing it
Information.
on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's the best way for our listeners to get in touch with you?
You can go to my website, SherrieDunlevy.com. It's SherrieDunlevy. Or you can go on Amazon and get the book, How Can I Help? Your go-to guide for helping loved ones through life's difficulties. Or, and if you go through my website, then I can autograph it for you.
Oh,
and send it
that's
out to
nice.
you.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
That's the only difference.
And we'll have that on our show notes.
Yep, that'll be in our show notes.
Yes, and if anybody needs me to come and speak, let me know. I'll
Oh.
bring books with me. Yeah.
Oh, right.
great.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to speak to groups about it, because you know what? It all comes down to, it was fear. It comes down to fear. There's either fear or love. And so if you step through that fear, then and step out in love, then you can't say or do the wrong thing.
Very
You
interesting.
can't.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, great, Sherrie. Thanks for joining us today on the Author Inside You podcast. It was great having you on, hearing your story. You're full of energy, great ideas, so thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me, guys. It was my pleasure.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this episode with Sherrie, please go to theauthorInsideYou.com and see our past episodes.
And please subscribe so you can get all future episodes too.
Also, join our mailing list, and we will send you a reminder every week about the new podcast released.
Until next time.
Right on.
Thank you for listening to the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.